Hello, I'm Captain Gamer, and this week's topic is Dead Space and being the silent protagonist. Thank you for joining me. I love the original Dead Space. By now this franchise is a whole fleshed out world spanning several installments, spin-offs, and even a few books, and it all started with this one ambitious title.
One part of it is a suspenseful, interactive grindhouse horror film. The other part is a pretty fun shooter with a heavy emphasis on having a scary atmosphere. The game looks great, especially for the time. The enemy designs are creative, and you're given a satisfying variety of weapons to defend yourself with. I see it as the video game equivalent of a horror-themed amusement park ride. For the uninitiated, Dead Space is a third-person shooter, meaning instead of seeing the world through our character's eyes, we have a camera floating somewhere behind his shoulder, and the game actually uses this to some effect. First, it keeps the character literally on screen and in our minds. Second, it allows the game to play around with the user interface by placing the health meter on his back, while our suit uses holograms to show maps, inventory, and other information. This way, there's no heads-up display with floating numbers and bars, and we can stay focused on the game and its world. It's different. I like it.
However, there is one aspect of Dead Space that I believe is underappreciated, even today. The fact that the protagonist, Isaac Clarke, is a silent protagonist. From press start to the credits sequence, we never really hear Isaac speak properly. Instead, the game is scripted so that everyone else carries out their conversations. Isaac doesn't need to say anything, and the dialogue still sounds mostly natural. Let's take a look.
Isaac! Isaac! God, I can't believe you made it.
Isaac, we ran into more of them on the way over here. Are you okay?
More what? What the hell are those things? Is that the crew?
Keep your voice down. Whatever they are, they're not friendly, and half the doors on this ship are locked because of the quarantine.
Damn it! Everything is on the other side of this quarantine. We can't reach it from here.
No, we can't. But you can. Isaac, if I can get to the bridge, I should be able to access the personnel files. You fix the tram, and I'll help you find Nicole.
You'll notice that Isaac didn't say anything, and also that if I didn't point it out, you may not have even cared. Dead Space is the first game, in my memory at least, to handle a silent protagonist so deliberately. I know that future games in this series have Isaac talking, but for the sake of this analysis, I am looking at Dead Space 1 as a standalone story. And if you didn't know by now, a silent protagonist is just that, a main character who is not depicted verbally communicating. This works for video games because the game doesn't need a talking protagonist to be enjoyable to play. On the other hand, if a game's story has a lot of voice acting and the main character's thoughts and feelings are important, it does make sense to give that character spoken lines. So we have clear cases of when a character doesn't need to talk, and when giving them a voice is the preferred option. As such, silent protagonists have been around since the beginning of video games, and by now we have a whole roster of notable silent protagonists, including obscure characters like Vaughn from Legend of Legaia, because I really like that game. In most cases, games work around the silence in one of two ways. They either clearly indicate that the characters actually are talking and communicating normally, they just don't give them any concrete lines for us to hear or read, or the silence is just glossed over, barely addressed, just in favor of pushing the story along.
But in Dead Space, there seems to be, for me, the sense that Isaac's silence is a bit more deliberate, more like a part of his established character. Well, let's take a look at the story.
In the spacefaring future, engineer Isaac Clarke goes with a team to repair a ship, the USG Ishimura. Very quickly, the team is overrun by horrifying undead monsters, and they're forced to split up. Now, Isaac is stranded on this death ship while only in remote contact with two colleagues, Kendra and Hammond. While his colleagues figure out what's wrong with his ship and what those monsters are, it's up to Isaac with his engineering know-how to fix the ship enough for them all to escape. There's plenty more to this story, but that's all you need to know, starting out. Because of his role in the incident, Isaac just ends up agreeing with all of the viable solutions that Kendra and Hammond come up with. He alone heads off to do the work himself because he's the only one in position to actually do anything about it, and he's the only one who actually knows how to fix anything. From a character standpoint, he simply moves from order to order, and like I said before, the game's dialogue just makes Isaac's lack of talking seem natural. The way everyone talks to them, you get the feeling that they understand they're talking to someone who actually is actively listening. Isaac just doesn't respond verbally. Instead of Isaac being silent for effect, that just may be his personality to be softer spoken, if outspoken at all. Added to this his very civilian mannerisms, and he strikes me as more of a softer personality type. Maybe an introvert, maybe even a bit awkward at times. Definitely a far cry from the battle-ready warriors we typically associate with video games now.
All things considered, your first impression of Isaac may be that he isn't a very strong character to be following. In fact, you might even find his situation a little bit insulting, being used as Hammond's all-purpose engineering tool.
Isaac, get over here and hack the door pad.
And if you're in a bit of a bad mood, you might even feel like Isaac is a bit of a pushover. And you know what? You may be right. Because despite how fierce his protective armor looks, I never really got the impression, at first, that he was a person of action. But it's not like Isaac doesn't think or feel at all.
Isaac feels terror plenty. Anytime he takes damage, you can hear his muffled cries of pain and fright, as if it had been building up and comes out in this burst of vocalization. And I love this aspect of the game because of how it promotes a sense of claustrophobia. You rely on that armor to keep you alive, but the helmet muffles Isaac's voice and can't let you hear him properly. The way his voice is muffled just feeds into that feeling of being trapped and just adds one more thing to this game's sense of atmosphere. Besides screaming when he's in pain, Isaac does have one other way in which he expresses himself, through his personal journal. It's actually an easy feature to overlook. As the story progresses, Isaac writes in his journal and mentions what his current objective is. It's good to catch you up in this story, and the real interesting part is how it's written in full conversational sentences. Essentially, Isaac's quote-unquote voice. The log depicts Isaac as rational, focused, non-judgmental, and, given this situation, very eager to escape. He never really says anything about any of the other characters, nothing personal at least. He just stays on what he needs to do to survive and save others. Compared to everyone else, Isaac clearly is the most level-headed person on the Ishimura, and the most confident expressing himself in writing.
And you know what? Suddenly I'm seeing the silence as more of a strength, because on board the Ishimura, surrounded by monsters, anyone else would be a nervous wreck.
And there actually are plenty of non-playable characters who have clearly gone insane. Ugh.
But Isaac, on the other hand, he maintains his silence of voice and emotion in a hostile environment, almost to the point of being completely stoic.
You can argue Isaac stays silent, simply because he's not programmed to react to most things. But again, given how his silence is part of his character, I just like to imagine he's harnessing his silence to stay calm. He's plenty scared, but he isn't letting that affect his ability to do anything about it. The big payoff is seeing Isaac get work done. Here we have this potentially timid character, and he is the one destroying monsters, he is the one making repairs, and he is the one saving the day. Just check out the body language in this scene. It's just the way he readjusts to his idle position. It says, "Looks like I have some work to do." Yes, technically the player is the one controlling Isaac, but this game's third-person perspective kept me believing that this is Isaac's story, and I was just along for the ride. Though Isaac is not big on communication, he shows his strength of character through his actions, and it's because of Isaac's modest appearance that his actions mean so much.
This brings to mind the saying, actions speak louder than words, and after playing Dead Space, I can believe it, and I'll admit, I based my vision of Isaac off of myself. I'm an introvert and I am awkward to the sky, but all the same, I do benefit whenever I get up and do or create something. Whenever I get out of my shell, people notice, and conversations start, we keep in touch, and by the end of it, I come out with new friends.
My point is, just like Isaac, we all have our strengths and expertise. We are ourselves the most when we're showing everyone what we're capable of, our proverbial good sides, if you will. When we display this good side to people we don't know, we're already giving them this indication of who we might be, and that familiarity could lead to good things. That's why I often hear self-help gurus recommend volunteer work. You're already showing to your fellow volunteers that you are the sort of person who have put aside time and effort for others. If you're into sports, join a league. If you're artistic, find some place to share your work. In short, get busy.
In fact, I am doing that right now. By creating this video, I am letting you all know what I am about, and it's working. Back when I posted this talk as an article, I met new people through that, and I hope to meet many more new people as I continue to write and to produce. Now, I want to hear from you all. What is your proverbial good side? How do you want to share yourself with the world? Do you have a really interesting skill? Are you really passionate about your job? Are you a fan of a TV series? Have you written any fan fiction about that TV series? The sky is the limit. And on another topic, which video game characters do you consider to be really strong and thought out? Unconventional characters may be enjoyed for unconventional reasons, and your reasons may be entirely personal. Tell me in the comments, and I will feature the best responses in the next video. Until then, game out. Oh my god, I did it!